GenuinelyGwyn. So today I'm doing my top requested video. 3 years ago today, I broke my face. I'm gonna tell you the story. First, when I was 3 years old, I moved to a new place and my dad signed me up for soccer. I didn't really like soccer. I mean, whatever. I didn't hate it. But then as I got older, I started disliking it more and more. At the end of every season, my dad would be like, at the end of every season, I'd be like, I don't really want to do this again. And my dad would be like, yes, you do. Let's sign you up for next season. I was like, Dad. Anyway, come to my 5th grade year, the spring season, and we have a very small team. We're not good. I'm terrible. I mean, I did do soccer for 7 years, so I'm not terrible, but at the same time, I'm pretty terrible. So we get to this game, and it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, honestly, it's like it took us 45 minutes to drive out here. So, and like half of our team is gone. Well, not half, because half of our team we wouldn't be able to play. We had the bare minimum for people to be able to play because we had a tiny team. One of our goalies was gone. So for the first half of our game, we went, we played. We were being completely crushed, but we hadn't had a single victory the entire season, so that was nothing new. But one thing was a little bit unsettling. So in soccer, once the goalie obviously is the only person who can touch the ball with their hands. Duh. But once the goalie has possession of the ball, once the goalie is holding the ball, you're not allowed to keep kicking it. But the refs were 14-year-old kids getting paid $10 to ref, so they were doing it or whatever. And the other team, when our goalie had the ball, they kept kicking it. And the refs didn't call it. So then we get to halftime. Our single goalie cannot play goalie the entire time because we have one sub, and so it's not really fair to make her play the whole time, especially when we're getting scored against every 2 minutes. So our coach goes around the circle of us players. He's like, whatever your name is, you're gonna go in. And then she's like, no, I don't want to. He's like, fine, you're gonna go in. And she's like, no. And so he goes around the entire circle of the entire team. And everybody's like, no. And then he's like, you know what? I'm your coach. I'm not going to ask anymore. I'm telling you, you're being goalie. And upon which the girl bursts into tears. We're all kind of like. Until the coach is like, oh my God, Gwyn, please, will you be goalie? And I'm like, sure. He's like, thank you. Thank you so much for stepping up for the team and, sacrificing a little bit to take one. I mean, I'm like, okay, you literally forced me to do this. I was not taking one for the team. You made me. The other team continues to completely crush us. They continue to kick the ball when they're not supposed to. And so, okay, I'm crouching down, right? It was illegal for her to kick it this time. And then her foot slips and her cleat smashes into my face. The parents on the sidelines said afterwards they don't know if I was unconscious. Some of them thought I was unconscious, but just for a second. I was not unconscious for a long period of time. So I get up, I'm kind of dazed, and everybody's, how anybody who plays soccer, or probably any other sport, knows that when somebody's hurt, you get down on one knee. And I was like, what's going on? Why is everybody on one knee? And the girl's like, sorry. And I heard that, and I appreciate it, because I don't blame the girl who kicked me. I think I partially blame the referees. I partially blame myself, but I mostly think it was an accident and nobody meant to hurt anybody else. And so my assistant coach comes out onto the field when she realized that the game is paused, and she's like, go back in there, you're fine. And I'm like, she's like, oh, no, come on, you got this, you're fine. And then upon which my nose starts gushing out blood, which is no big deal, right? If a kid gets hit in the head, you'd assume that they'd have nosebleeds. So in normal circumstances, you would probably assume that they would send them to the side and, ice their face or whatever, pinch their nose, and go back on the field for the last quarter of the game. But apparently this lady is terrified of blood. I don't know what's going on. She freaks out at the sight of blood, and she's like, oh my God, where's her mom? Where's her mom? And I guess my mom wasn't paying attention throughout this ordeal. I don't know what was happening, but it takes her a minute to just oh, I'm here. And so she comes out, and we get in the car. Nobody calls an ambulance, which in hindsight, it makes sense because it didn't look like there was anything wrong with me. But I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided if I don't know. But my nose is gushing blood, and so we get in the car, and I get to sit in the front seat, which my mom never lets me do. And I'm like, why are you letting me sit in the front seat? But I'm all in a daze. Like, it's really weird. And so at first I don't feel any pain. It's all kind of numb and tingly in here, and then the pain sets in. The pain starts hitting it because I've been in shock, but the shock is wearing off or whatever. And so I'm in this unbearable. I mean, this is by far the worst pain of my life. And so we see a hospital on the way, and I'm like, Mom, why don't we go to the hospital? And she's like, no, we have to go to the hospital by our house being 45 minutes away. So, I think it makes sense because the hospital, who knows how we would have gotten there, would it be actually right off the exit, or would it take a while to get around, or how would it be a sketchy place? But to the hospital, my mom's, she's freaked out. My dad wasn't there that day. My dad didn't have any reason to go to the game, so he didn't. And so she's running into the emergency room, but I'm like, Mom, I can't run. And she's like, what do you mean you can't run? And I'm like, So we speed walk into the room, and the ER is completely empty. And so there's the admitting nurse, or I don't know the exact, it was definitely not a doctor, but I'm assuming it was the admitting nurse or whoever was at the front desk. So they took, the medical information, and they're like, are you feeling dizzy at all? And I'm like, yeah. And so they take me in a wheelchair back to a room, at which point they leave me there for 5 hours. So then they're like, I throw up at one point, and they're like, oh, it's probably nothing. They give me nothing for the pain whatsoever. I was in a lot of pain, and they gave me absolutely nothing. And, I was a 10-year-old kid, I was scared, and, geniuses. So somebody comes in right before I'm about to be discharged, and my mom's like, why has nobody come in here? And they're like, oh, there have been a lot of ambulances this afternoon. We've been really busy. We're like, okay. And so the lady, this is also not a doctor. I never saw a doctor in the ER, which seems a bit odd, but whatever. They're like, okay, well, we could take a CAT scan. If you wanted, we can take a CAT scan, but you don't really need to. My mom's like, okay, I guess we won't. And she's like, okay, you should probably see your dentist just to make sure there wasn't any dental damage, but we don't see anything wrong. There are no teeth falling out. So we're going to see if you have a concussion or anything. And sure enough, I did have a concussion. This is my third concussion, by the way. And so they sent me home. So the next day, I have this big black eye, and there's an imprint where the cleat was. I go to my dentist, and he takes x-rays, they take x-rays at the dentist, that's normal. And he's like, okay, well, this is kind of a poor man's CT scan, and I don't see anything wrong. I think you're fine. But, you see, I was kicked in a nerve cluster, in a cluster of the things that feel pain. Awesome. So I went to school. I lasted half an hour, and then I was just feeling so lightheaded and if you have a concussion, you should not go to school that soon after. It's just a bad idea. And so I went to the nurse, and I am the kind of person, I don't go to the nurse ever. I've never done it. I would never skip class for any reason, and I was terrified of the school nurse. It didn't matter how sick I felt, I would never. But I knew that I had been hurt to some extent, and that a concussion, concussions were kind of somewhat serious. And so I went to the nurse, and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, sweetie. Okay, I'll call you. Oh, ow, stop biting me, Joel. Okay, I'll call your mom. So she called my mom. My mom picked me up, and the next day I had a physical for camp. So we told her what had happened the other day because I had a giant black eye, and so she's taking her finger, digging it into my face. Thanks, lady. And she's like, something might be wrong in there. I'd like to get x-rays. I just don't feel good. I just feel sick, and I'm just tired all the time, and I'm in pain. And so we go down to the x-ray room place, and so since this was unscheduled beforehand, we have to sit there and wait for an hour. So I'm lying down in the waiting room on chairs, which is not very comfortable. And eventually we get into the x-rays. They take the x-rays, and a couple days later the doctor calls and they're like, yep, there's definitely a problem here. I can refer you to a specialist. We're like, okay. And I still haven't gone to school. I don't know exactly how this happens, but we called my ENT. So my ENT is my ear, nose, and throat doctor because I have ear problems, which I can discuss in a later video if anybody's interested. But she's like, oh yeah, we have this surgeon who's like part of our practice, and he's great. You know, if this ever happened to one of my kids, he'd be the first guy I'd call. I totally trust him. He's great. So like, sounds good. So we went, and I got a CAT scan this time, and we'd scheduled this, and we had to wait for like 4 hours in the waiting room to do it. But before we get the CAT scan, the guy's like, oh yeah, that's broken. Okay, would have been nice to know that a week ago before I think that something, I don't know. So then we get the CAT scan, and he's like, it's a step down fracture. You'll need surgery. I'm like, oh, this guy, not the greatest patient care. I barely had any interaction with him. He's just like, you need surgery. He said that like all the stuff, like the black stuff in here is like blood that's collecting and swelling. So at this point, this entire side of my face has been tingling. It hurts, like up here it hurts, but like down here, like my mouth, it's just tingly and pretty numb, which apparently is due to the nerve cluster, getting kicked in a nerve cluster. For surgery, the guy's like, okay, well, we're gonna cut your cheek open. You're not gonna have any scars because they're gonna go in like through my mouth. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop, I believe his exact words were, we're gonna pop your bone together like a Lego. Thanks for painting such a pretty, calming, relaxing picture in a time of distress, dude. And then we're gonna put some titanium plates. And so, you know, I don't know if you've gotten braces or whatever, but like they bring out they have like a fake skull with like all the different like surgeries that they can do on it. And so they show me like where they're gonna put the screws and stuff. And I'm like, ugh. Like, so step down fracture. If the bone is usually like this, mine was like this. And then my eye socket and my orbit, which is in here, was completely shattered. I get the surgery. And so they said that they might have to put in like padding underneath my eye, like in there to, which would be super fun because of the eye socket was completely ruined, but they did not end up having to do that. So for the surgery, they popped my face back together like a Lego. And then they took a titanium plate and a bunch of screws and screwed it all back together. I started feeling a lot better after the surgery. I really wish that this had been diagnosed right away because I ended up being out of school for a month, actually. I do not set off metal detectors, which is weird because like if it can detect your watch, why wouldn't it be able to detect my face? I don't know. Fast forward to February of 2015. Go back to the dentist. You need braces. Me. Awesome. So when I first got like a consultation for getting braces, the orthodontist told me that there was one reason and one reason only that I needed braces. It's a tooth up there. And said, well, the thing is, this tooth isn't coming down. So we have two options here. One, we pull the tooth, and then you just get Invisalign. In retrospect, I was an idiot. Why did I not just do that? Or option two, you get braces. You don't need to have surgery, get a tooth pulled or whatever, and all is well. I don't know why I chose to get braces because it seems ridiculously stupid. So I go to the orthodontist, and so, okay, anybody who has braces knows of the horrible wax mold. It's where they take this like platter and they fill it full of wax and they shove it in your mouth to take a mold of your teeth. Well, I didn't get that. At my place, they do a CAT scan instead, which is weird, but whatever, sounds a lot more pleasant. And they're like, well, it looks like this screw might be going through the tooth that isn't coming down, which could be an issue. But what we're going to try to do is attach a bracket to that tooth and try to pull it down. And so either we'll pull it down through the screws. Fun. Or the screws aren't even in the tooth and it just kind of looked like that from the scans and it's hard to tell. So we'll make a space for it, we'll pull it down, and it'll be great. A couple months later, they're like, well, the tooth isn't coming down. I think there are 2 screws going through it. You have to get surgery. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The whole reason I got braces was to avoid surgery. I know you're like, you need braces, which is 2 years of pain, plus surgery. Yay! Oops. So they referred me to a maxillofacial surgeon. Fancy name. And so the maxillofacial surgeon is like, okay, we have a couple options here. We can cut up into your face and we can take the screws out and then you'll have to get a root canal later in life, but you can keep the tooth. Or we can take out the screws, then take out the tooth, and then you can get a prosthetic tooth. Which didn't sound all that bad to me. I mean, that prosthetic tooth, that'd be pretty cool. That's a tooth you can, like, take out. I read it on their website. You can, like push a button and the tooth comes out, which would be pretty great. But I didn't get that. What I ended up getting is, okay, we take the screws out, then we take the tooth out, and then we close the gap with braces. Braces, fun time. Well, over the summer, this is last summer, I got the surgery, and that was a weird experience. Okay, so it was like, it wasn't in a hospital or anything. It was like in the like little practice or whatever it's called. And first they gave me laughing gas. And I don't know if any of you have had laughing gas for like wisdom teeth. It was so weird. It's not like, laughing gas is supposed to make you be like, haha, look, the ceiling is white. What's up with that? I was not like that at all. Like I still was like in my normal mindset. And I remember this pretty vividly. And then he knocks me out with the stuff in the IV. Then I wake up, and it's in this pretty big room, and there are a bunch of chairs set up, and I'm sitting up, which is I'm sure there's something about, like, not being, so I'm in a lot of pain when I wake up, like, a lot of pain. And there's a lady, like a nurse or something in the room, but she's talking on the phone about her date and ignoring me. Like, ow. And so I'm like, since they have me in the chair sitting up, I start like leaning over because I just want to be lying down. I just want to go to bed and I want it to stop hurting. She comes over and she's like, what are you doing? You need to be sitting up, otherwise you're gonna choke. Oh, what are you doing? You got this, like, so they have, like, you know how you like think a thing to hold an ice pack to my head or something? What are you doing? You got this off. Oh, come on, this is so, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm under so many drugs right now. I'm in pain. Oh my God, let me be. So she was really annoying. And then, like, an indefinite amount of time, I don't know how much time passes, and they're like, okay, time for you to start walking. You need to walk out to the car now. I'm like, I can't walk. And so I couldn't really walk, so they're basically dragging me out to the car. And the guy's like, do you want to keep your tooth in the screws? I'm like, yeah. Boom, right there. Is that in focus? So there's the tooth, and you can see, like, the bloody part was the part that's, like, inside my mouth. And then he put, I don't know if you can see that well, but he put one of the screws back inside the tooth to show, like, where it was, and then there's the other screw. So that's pretty cool. The guy told me that 5 to 7 days for recovery until I'll be back to normal. That was not true. We went on vacation exactly, like, a week after I had surgery, and I was not okay. Like, I was still really tired all the time. But, oh well, you move on. And so, I had, like, dissolvable stitches in my mouth, but they didn't dissolve, they fell out. You see that? Yeah, I kept them. Who wouldn't? So, yeah. That's my fun story. I hope you were duly entertained. And if you have any funny or terrifying or whatever medical stories, tell me them below. If you'd like to hear more of my medical stories, tell me down below. So I hope you enjoyed. And so this is my broken face story that everybody's always asking me to talk about. So there you go.